Okay, I'm going to start now. Still the reference is ZK book by Rare Skills, and today is the last meeting, right? So everything we work until now should make perfect sense, and they are very close to the final version of the protocol, right? But recall that like last time we had a balanced QAP formula and we had a verifier step saying pairing of A1 and B2 equals pairing of C1 and G2, right? So there is a problem there. So basically there are three types of attacks, right? So the attacker can come up with some problem, some attacking scenarios. So our scheme is not perfect. So this week we are going to introduce alpha, beta, gamma, delta, R and S. So alpha and beta belong to a group, and gamma and delta belong to a group, and also R and S is another group. So three sets of them. They solve three problems. Okay, so our strategy is first we consider what if I just don't use alpha and beta, and we ask that question, is that okay, right? So we are going to show that it's not okay because attacker can do some attack on this. So let's go through my notes. A first question, okay? So what if we just stop what we had last week and we don't introduce alpha and beta? So this is the verifier step, right? So the problem here is verifier only accepts 3 points on the elliptic curve, and he cannot validate if they are computed correctly, right? So the problem is, what if an attacker just come up with some random A, B, and C, which, oh man, this is C1. So what if the attacker just come up with some random scalar and satisfy this equation, right? So the verifier has no way to know. And for a simple example, so attacker can come up with 3G1, 5G2, and also 15G1. So he can just come up with the number without doing any computation, right? So this formula just holds because you can see that in Python, if you compute this, the pairing of term 2, term 1, and also term 4 and term 3, the result is true, okay? So this is just a simple example. So the idea is, say this is A, B, and C, and the attacker just need to come up with some number that has a property such that A times B equals C. So easy at that. So how to deal with this attack? We are going to introduce alpha and beta, right? So alpha and beta are random shifts. So alpha and beta, they are two random numbers, and the result is you need to let the trusted setup compute this alpha 1. So this is a G1 point. So this is equivalent to alpha times G1. This is equivalent to beta times G2. Right? So you have to let the trusted setup compute this these two encrypted points, and then you do a random shift on them. So the computation is very simple because this is easy addition, right? You just have to like take the sum of the two scalars here. Okay, so you do the same for B, and this is a random shift on the scalar of old A and old B. Okay, so this is easy as that. So two random numbers, but you can't leak the value of alpha beta. You have to encrypt them into some G1, G2 point. Okay. Questions so far? I think this is very clear, right? Hold on, I see a message. Let me open this. Okay, so I'm not going to discuss last week's question here because it's just some tedious algebra, really. Okay, so it wasn't very impressive. So I remember like the problem from last week was like the degree of powers of tau for h tau and t tau is one less than that of a and b. So it was pretty boring actually. Yeah, just some tedious algebra. So yeah, I can show you how it works later. Okay, don't worry about that. Yeah, they are just some like implementation details. It's not very important. Okay, so yeah, just try to grab the main idea. Yeah, so we come up with the strategy and we claim that this protection can protect from the forgery attack we just mentioned. So how? We need to prove that, right? The main idea is now you have to know alpha and beta in order to forge a proof. And the security of alpha G1, beta G2 is protected by ECDLP. So prover only sees G1, G2 point, and he cannot extract the data. So he cannot extract the scalar, right? So this is protected. But we need to show an example that this forgery won't work. And there are 3 attacks, okay? So in ZK book, I think this part was written pretty like confusing, right? And pretty long. So I come up with a simpler, like very simple example, okay? So just say we want to balance this pairing equation, right? So right now we have A, B, and C. Also we have to do a pairing of alpha and beta. So why we have to do an additional term, I'm gonna show the math later here, okay? So don't worry about this. And our objective now is to find A, B, C such that A times B equals C plus alpha times beta. Okay, so this is a prover's strategy if he wants to forge a fake proof. Okay, so if this holds, then this pairing checks. Cool. So right now we introduce alpha and beta. So A equals A prime. This is old A. Okay. So A prime plus alpha and B prime plus beta, and we just substitute these identities into the equation, and we can see here alpha times beta just got cancelled out. Okay. So we only left with so this term, so A prime, B prime, and this term C, and also we have 2 very hard to compute terms, which is A prime times beta, alpha times B prime. So we can only know A prime and B prime, but we have no way to extract the information of alpha and beta. So these 2 terms are not able to compute by the prover. Okay, so in ZK book, basically I simplified 3 attacks. Basically they mean I'm an attacker, so I'm a prover. I can come up with A prime, B prime, and I try to compute C. I can see here C equals A prime times B prime, but plus these 2 terms, and I have no way to figure this out. Okay, so second attack, I can do that in the reversed direction. So I come up with a C. I try to factor C and try to get this A prime, B prime, but I gonna fail too because I don't know this beta and alpha. I have no way to balance out this equation. Okay, so the third attack, this is different from the first attack. Okay, so this time I come up with A and B, therefore so I come up with A and B here. Okay, so I try to compute C. The formula I'm going to use is A times B equals C plus alpha beta. So if I want to compute C, I just do A times B minus alpha times beta, but I don't have information of this product either. Therefore, my conclusion is, if you want to protect from these three attacks, you cannot leak alpha, you cannot leak beta. Also, you have to protect against this alpha times beta product. So this product should be a secret value as well. Okay, so that's the main idea. Okay, so do we have questions so far? No question. Okay, then continue. So this part is a continuation of the discussion here, like why do we have another set of pairing on the right hand side, right? So why is that? Let's go to the step before pairing. Okay, so we are not going to work on the pairing equation because this is very hard to compute. We're going to go back to the QAP equation. So the first line here, this is the old QAP. You should be very familiar with this by now. And we are going to continue from the second line because now we introduce alpha and beta, which is random shift, like we define that here, right? So we just write out like old A and old B in this inner product notation, and we do a random shift by alpha, random shift by beta, and we multiply them together. We try to compute what is the new right hand side, right? So this is just simple algebra, right? So you just break down, like do the multiplication here, this and this, multiply this and multiply this, plus multiply those two. Okay, so in the last term, we here we see that we can use the old QAP equation to substitute this with the right hand side here. Okay, so recall that this should be an identity because without alpha and beta, this is true. This is always true because yeah, we proved this like 2 weeks ago. Okay, so this should be true. This should be always true, and we can substitute this as an identity into the new equations here, and therefore the new equations becomes like this right hand side. Okay, we're gonna put this right hand side here. We're gonna delete this part. Okay, so after that, now we see we can actually combine these three terms in the middle. So in the zk book, I found an error, right? So this image was copied from book, and I think Jeffrey made a mistake here. I told him yesterday. Okay, so this step we should be doing a combine here because why? First, because the summation index, they all start from 0 and m, right? And recall that these are just some inner products, so they are some polynomials. Okay, and they also have a common term ai here. Therefore, you can factor this ai out and recall that ai is just an entry in the witness vector. Okay. So we take ai out, we combine this summation, and we reach the final equation. Okay, so you can see this alpha times beta get factored out. So alpha beta here, and we combine rest of the term, and then plus hx tx. Okay, so after the combination, well, I shouldn't call it combination, whatever. So after the quote-unquote combine step, we have this inner product, the new inner product, but we factor ai out, and like this inside the parentheses, we are going to create a new trusted setup for that. Okay, so this computation, this part should be like oblivious to the prover, and he only knows this AI. Okay, and AB equals C plus alpha beta, and if you do that in G1 G2 equation, you are going to reach to this step. Okay, so A1, you just compute this term and wrap it in a G1 point, and then because this is just an easy addition, you can just break down this into 2 G1 points, and then you can factor out this AI term because it's just a scalar. Okay, so the like this part and this part, so everything I have this red underline here means prover is not going to do that on his own because he doesn't know this tau. Therefore, he relies on some information provided by trusted setup, which is the powers of tau. So right now, the powers of tau, we just need some new sets of powers of tau. Therefore, trusted setup is going to compute like all the things here because prover does not know tau. Okay, and also this. Therefore, we need like 4 more trusted setup here. I think like or 5 or yeah, just whatever. So the setup is going to do more pre-processing, okay, to satisfy this computation. But in the end, prover just computes the same proof. Okay, so proof is just A1, B2, and C1, and send this to the verifier, and we just show that this is true from the QAP equation. Okay, so the new verifier step has an additional term, pairing of alpha 1 beta 2, because we just did the new QAP equation and it has an additional alpha beta term here. Okay, so this is the story for alpha and beta. Do we have question? No question. No question. Okay. So the takeaway is alpha beta is a protection mechanism to protect from forgery, right? So I think the essence of this part is just, I come up with an attacking strategy, and I come up with alpha and beta random shift to protect from all 3 attacks. Okay, that's the reason why Graph 16 had this alpha and beta parameters. And let's continue to gamma and delta. So what's the motivation behind this, right? So this, the motivation is we want to separate public input and private input. So a good example in Circon, for example, is, a Circon template. I want the prover to give me 2 inputs as the factor of an integer. Okay, so this is the integer factorization problem. I can set the product of those 2 factors as a public input. Therefore, I can reuse the circuit, right? So for example, I can ask you what are the factors of 4, and next time I can ask you what are the factors of 8. So by setting the product as a public input, I can just keep reusing this circuit. I don't need to write a separate circuit for each iteration, right? So in practice, we want some public inputs. Also, we have some private input. So in our case, there is no explicitly say there are any public input, because 1 and out, they should be always public, right? In like common sense. because this 1 is just a constant term, and this output, like why would you hide the output, right? So usually, yeah, just the inputs are private, and in this is the inner product representation of C1. No, I mean C in the QAP formula, right? So usually we say, okay, so the first L terms, so from index 0 to L, so in this, for example, in this case, we have 1 out as public, then we can say, okay, L equals 1. So index 0 and 1, they are public, and index starting from 2 to the end, they are private, okay? So this is how we separate the public and private input. And there is a problem here. Oh, you can see the verifier steps gets updated. Okay, so right now you have to compute another term. Okay, so notice that this is the first part of the C, right? So this is the public part, okay? So right now C1 is the, oh man, this is C1. Okay? So we separate the public part and private part, and the prover only computes A1, B2, and C1, and therefore, like this long thing here is not coming from the prover, is verifier's public knowledge. Okay, so the design is like this, but there is a problem here, because public inputs, they are public. Therefore, in the design, we don't want the prover to use the public inputs, right? Because we assume that only the verifier knows. No. I mean, only the verifier uses public inputs in actual computation. We want the prover only follows the guidance of the trusted setup. Okay? So the problem here is, since public inputs are public, prover can use public inputs to generate some proof. But this is just a theoretical attack. I don't have an example here because it is very hard to generate a proof just by using public inputs as the additional knowledge. Okay, so this is like gamma and beta protection is only protecting a theoretical attack, which has maybe very low impact. Okay, but it's better to be safe. So this is like another layer of security. Okay, so the idea here is just gamma and delta, they are protections against prover using public inputs for generating a fake proof, which is a theoretical attack. Okay, so questions so far? No question. Good. So we are going to introduce gamma and delta. So how they are used? They are used as some division parameters here, right? So why is division? We're gonna see that later. So recall that in finite field, division is just multiplication by its inverse. So this is doable. Okay. Yeah, I think this is very clear since we talked about this, like this long formula. It is the coefficient of each term in the polynomial. Okay. And when we evaluate the polynomial at tau, this becomes the powers of tau, right? So yeah, maybe I should say this is the evaluation of like 1. Here is 1 comma x squared. Yes. So we start from the constant term, right? So this will be like tau, like 1 tau squared tau cube and blah blah blah. Okay, and this value is the same as in the last step, but right now the new thing is that we divide this value by what is this, gamma. Okay, so very similarly, oh yeah, this is for public input, so the index start from 0 to L. Okay, so for private input, very similar formula, but this is divided by delta. Okay, so basically we take C out and break down into 2 parts, and for the public parts we do divide by gamma, and for the private part we do that by divide by delta. Okay, so recall that you have another like a trailing term here. It is h tau t tau. We want to combine that with the private input, so it also divides by delta, so you can take the sum of those. Okay, and so right now, since we have introduced 2 parameters, we have to let the trusted setup publish gamma as a G2 point and delta as a G2 point. Okay, so how that works? Basically, we are going to change the verifier step. So in the last 2 pairings here, we are going to use gamma as G2 and delta as G2 as a parameter here. So if the prover follow the guidance of trusted setup, his C will have a division by C. Yeah, the C will have a division by delta term, like for every single term. Therefore, when I do pairing, they all cancel out. Okay, so the idea here is just, my objective is to stop the prover from using public inputs, and therefore I introduce 2 parameters. I am going to divide it for like every single term in the polynomial, and also I'm going to multiply this term in the final pairing step. And therefore, if you follow my guidance, your terms should be having this like delta inverse in every single term, and therefore they cancel out perfectly. Okay, so if you try to use public inputs directly, you are not going to come up with numbers to cancel my terms, because gamma and delta are secret and they are protected by ECDLP again. Okay, so this is the protection from the prover using public inputs for generating proof. Okay, so this is gamma delta. Question so far? No question. Wow, you guys are smart. Yeah, we are doing pretty quick today, so we finished like 66.6% already. Okay, so the last part is another set of parameters called RMS. So right now our scheme is actually pretty secure already. But there is another attack, which is the brute force attack. So how is that possible? For example, you consider a voting game. Okay, so you are voting, for example, like some president candidate. Okay, so there are 2 candidates in the last round. So you are going to provide a a witness vector, for example, say 1 comma out comma input 1 and input 2, but you are going to say the input is either 0 or 1, okay? So represents like I'm going to vote or I'm not going to vote. So for each candidate, you are going to say either 0 or 1. So in this case, the zero knowledgeness of the scheme is broken because the attacker can just come up with a witness vector, say, okay, I'm gonna try 0 0, 0 1, 1 0, and 1 1. It doesn't make sense, but yeah, you can now say like 1 1. Yeah, maybe you, yeah, I'm going to have 3 options. So either I'm not going to vote completely, or I'm going to vote for A, or I vote for B. So there are only 3 possibilities, and the attacker can brute force this. Okay, so this is a simplified example, and see why we need to introduce RNS is to stop this brute forcing attack. Okay, so this is the idea. How it works? RNS, they are used as another set of random shifts. So recall that alpha 1, this is already a random shift, okay? But it is not enough since we want to do another random shift here. So this is another G1 point, so it is R times gamma as G1 point. And similarly, you plus this S times delta as G2 point here. And you are going to compute another point called B1. So this is same formula, but you are going to evaluate everything as a G1 point. Okay, so in C1, the computation is a bit long. So I don't have a proof for this step, but you can actually compute the QAP formula again. So for simplicity, you can assume that alpha and beta, they are just 0. And gamma and delta, you assume them to be 1. Okay, so your goal is to try to prove that A times B equals C here without changing the verifier step. So my claim is, after I introduce R and S like this, and also I change my C1 formula into this long thing, my claim is the verifier step is exactly this. Okay, so equivalently, my claim is the introduction of R and S does not change the verifier step. Okay, so you can prove it, but the proof, I think, is pretty hard to work with, and basically just some simple algebra, but pretty tedious. Okay, so if you are interested in this, please do it on your own. And I think that's the end of today. Any question, guys? Yeah, this is the end of today. We are fast. Yeah, so by now you should be able to like implement Graph16 code on your own, actually. So this is everything. Okay, so this is everything in the paper, and we finished them all. Yes, so the question is, what are the resources I recommend besides zk book? First, I think you should learn more zircon. Okay, so in practice, you are not going to worry about the math behind the protocol. You are going to see constraints in code. So the best way to start is doing zircon. What are some of the resources Actually, it's very hard to find Circom resource on the internet. I think you should be like there is a tutorial provided by Rare Skills for sure, and that one is pretty easy. Okay, so after that, just read Circom documentation maybe. After that, just read code in Circomlib. There is no way to learn Circom systematically right now. I think I don't remember any resource other than that actually. Yeah. The theory, it really depends on your goal. For example, my goal is to find bugs in circuits, right? So my study, like after grad 16, my study focused on Planck and Plancke and zk-VM and nothing beyond that. Oh, and a little bit more Stark because they use Stark in zk-VM, and that's pretty much about it. And I don't continue. I don't plan to continue studying more theory beyond that. So short answer is Planck and Stark. Yeah. You don't have any idea about pairing me either. But I'm going to take more time studying that. Okay. Uh, I got a friend wrote two pairing articles. I'm gonna share with you later. Okay, I'm gonna find the links. He wrote two articles named like pairing for the rest of us. Okay, so I'm going to share that link to you. No, your mic isn't working, but I can see your face. Oh, I checked the original paper only for the formula. Yeah, I don't think the original paper actually tells you like all the motivation behind this. For example, like the motivation behind alpha, beta, these things, I don't think is in the paper. Okay, so yeah, but the question is in the future, for example, there is no good article on the internet. You have to read the paper. So yeah, I think in the future I need to get used to that. Yeah. But Planck, yeah, the resource for Planck is also. I don't think there's any good resource on the internet in English. I actually found a good resource in Chinese. And for Plancke, and there is no article for Plancke, 0. I mean Plancke 3. Yeah, Stark has yes. Stark. First, I think you can start with the zk whiteboard session, right? They have like one video on Stark and also have a video on zk-VM. They are pretty good. Watch that. Yeah, the resource for Stark should be plenty. Yeah. I am still working as auditor, and I probably will still be doing auditing for a long time. Okay, so I only learn zk for like getting a new skill to stand out a bit, but I don't have plan to go all in zk right now. Yeah, I think the market is pretty small compared to Solidity and Solana at this moment. I think, right? But I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know the future of about zk, but one thing I know is this skill is pretty hard to learn. Therefore, if you have some opportunity in the future, if you learn this early, you're gonna have an advantage compared to others for sure. How did I get into the auditing industry? Uh, yeah, that was probably in last year January, I think. Yeah, it was pretty common story. Just code arena, Sherlock, code hawks. Yeah, auditing contest, and then I do private audits. Yeah, yeah, nothing special about that. Oh, that video. Yeah, you need to do some additional research. Yeah, because the speaker assumes you have some knowledge, and they are not going to start from the beginning. Okay, they just they kind of like assume you are a working professional in the industry, and they don't tell you about the foundations. You have to do additional research. Oh, sure. If you have questions like after this session, you just message me in the channel at me anytime. If I have time, I gonna answer for sure. Yeah. And for myself, I think I'm going to work on pairing a little bit more, and also MoonMath chapter 5. Yeah, I think I struggle with that chapter. I still don't understand many other things in it. Okay. Okay, thank you guys. If no more question, I'm gonna take a short break. I have another talk at DeFi Hack Labs later, like 10 minutes later. Okay. Thank you guys. So we have three people graduated from this study group. In week 1, remember there are like more than 100 people. Yeah, 3% graduation rate.